Hello, National University Academy students. Mr. Goyette continuing our discussion of Huckleberry Finn. I just went over the racism and slavery section, then the video cut me off at 5 minutes, even though I went the whole 10 minutes with it. So let me pick up where I stopped there on intellectual and moral education. So we see how this racism and slavery theme really becomes part of the discussion of intellectual and moral education as a theme. I should introduce to you the concept of the Bildungsroman, Bildungsroman, one word, Bildungsroman. It is a concept that means that a character, in this case Huck, we watch as he develops and improves and goes through a society in a particular context, in this case the antebellum South, or the slavery holding South. We see his development, we see how he rejects and accepts certain parts of the society. Again, that's called Bildungsroman, Bildungsroman. We see how his individual judgment against the hypocrisy of the slave owners and his father, a drunken, belligerent man who can't raise him sufficiently, allows him to exile himself. In a sense, we see him go to his island dwelling where he finds Jim. And the raft also represents this exile concept of separating yourself out from society, this self-imposed exile, where he has a separate upbringing and retreat from a mixed-up society that has both slavery and Christian values. So we see that his intellectual and moral education is something that he is shaping in response to the attempts for his father to make him more of a ruffian, more of a homeless drifter type of kid, and the efforts of Miss Watson and the judge to try to reform him and make him a good Christian boy who's clean and stays in the home and gets a good education. He runs away from both of those things, and while there are good and bad things about it, we see that one of the things he's keen about understanding is that people are basically good, that Jim is a good man, whether his skin is black, white, or purple, that he's a good guy, and that Pap, his dad, is one of the worst type of white society and the failure of the family. He represents all the things that are bad about the white race there. And then Mark Twain's intellectual and moral education topic with Tom Sawyer, if you caught this, when we meet Tom Sawyer, he's got his friends together, including Huck, and he's talking about pillaging and killing off some neighbors and taking their money and their goods. At the same time, this is a little fantasy, as horrible as it sounds, where they're going to kill these people. It's a fantasy that's going to go nowhere. And the kids realize that, oh, we have curfew, we have this and that. So they're still kids. But it shows this kind of combination of adventure novel and Sunday school teachings, where there's this crusader mentality, this mentality of, kill the heathens, take their money. And while Tom Sawyer has this imagination that can be brutal, it really doesn't amount to anything. It's just these fantasies he's coming up with from the adventure novels. But this does contribute to this idea of intellectual and moral education. Where is Tom Sawyer getting some of his information? From the adventure novels, from his Sunday school teachings. In a way, Huck rejects those things. He's not a reader. He's not an educated kid, and he's not going to Sunday school. Sunday school, in a way, though, for him, is part of that slave-owning society. It's part of that prim and proper group that holds slaves. So for him, having a relationship with Jim is much more genuine. Maybe not consciously so. He doesn't sit there and go, oh, I'm the better guy because I'm friends with Jim. But we can judge his character as being one of open to having a friendship with this man, whereas other people see him only as a piece of property, a slave. The other topic of civilized society, the hypocrisy of civilized society, and you'll notice in the book, and Twain chooses to spell civilized in the opening pages different, because Huck's pointing out to you that not consciously, he's just saying that being civilized here is kind of absurd. You can't be civilized by a society that's the slave owning South. And I'm trying to see where he first introduces this, but you'll notice he misspells civilized to show not only that Huck is illiterate, or that he's certainly not a good speller, but that to also introduce to you the idea that this version of civilized is a little off. It brings your attention to the word itself as he misspells it. And some of the examples of this are in how the judge responds when Huck is being mistreated by his father. The judge returns Huck to his father's and says, "You're rightfully his father. You have a right to be back to have your son back." It shows how the society, in going with general rules, is really doing things that are not in the best interest, in this case of Huck or children. It also shows that it also is a parallel to the white man's right to have slaves. This idea that you see with Sally Phelps. What does she do when she meets Jim? Instead of seeing a man who is now free and is living on his own and having a chance to live a good Christian life, she thinks, "Oh, we better return this guy to his rightful owner." Well, you can't own a person, but she's living in the South. Those are her morals. And while they may bump heads with the Christian side of her, it's more for her. It's the Christian thing to do to return him, to follow the law and return the slave. So again, the hypocrisy of a civilized society and the attempts to civilize Huck. So those are the three main themes that we'll discuss right now: racism and slavery, intellectual and moral education, and the civilized society. Well, there are more things to discuss, and we'll get to those on your discussion boards and in the chats. So privileged to be working with all of you, great students. So keep it up, keep up the good work, and I look forward to working with you and hearing your ideas in the class. Please do take notes. The content from this webcast and other parts of the lectures will be on the quiz for Unit 2. Thank you and have a great day.